This is Barrels and Barrels, a bourbon and baseball podcast, with your hosts, Brandon Spinner and Michael Burns.
And welcome back to Barrels and Barrels, a bourbon and baseball podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Brandon Spinner, alongside one of my best buddies, Michael Burns. Mikey, baseball season in full swing. We're almost halfway through, but more importantly, how are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm a little under the weather. Shouldn't affect my palate too much. I don't have any snot yet, but the throat's got a nasty little taste to it. So
that means that this will just be a nice little coat and like medication. We're going to medicate your throat.
Medicinal whiskey right there.
Medicinal whiskey. That's what they made it for back in the 1920s and early 1930s, right? That whole prohibition thing.
Yeah, I'll have to ask you what you're going to prescribe me here later.
Yes, we will prescribe you some whiskey, maybe some bourbon here in just a few minutes. But we are Barrels and Barrels, a bourbon and baseball podcast. As I mentioned, I'm one of your hosts, Brandon. That is Michael, and we are here on episode 30. And we have started off our episodes for the last couple of months with the best number of the podcast. So this is episode 30. So who is the best MLB player to ever wear the number 30? And as always, Michael did some really in-depth homework on this one, and he is just pulling up the statistics now. So number 30s, there's a pretty decent list, but I think there are three that we'll probably be battling back and forth with when it comes to the best.
I just saw one that came up. Arismendi Alcantara.
Yes, that's exactly who I was thinking of. He's probably the first one on the list because he's A and A, alphabetically.
Oh, man. So I immediately see Greg Maddux pop up as the guy who has the most WAR for the number 30. But
he only wore it for 2 years, and he was known for the number 31. Did he wear 30 with the Padres? Is that where he wore it?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's
exactly.
what I figured.
You're spot on.
I was going to say he finished his last couple of years as a Padre, so that makes more sense. I think
this could be our most like controversial one because there's nobody at the top of the WAR list that has like decade or two of years.
Right. Now, I would make a case for three players with this. My first player is Ken Griffey Jr. He wore it for 6 years with the Reds from 2000 through 2005. I think the other name is Nolan Ryan, who wore it for, I believe, 12 years between stops with the Mets and the Angels. And then the other one is Tim Raines, who was a pretty great outfielder for the Expos and then went to the Chicago White Sox. That's where I remember him from because I grew up in Chicago in the early 90s. But he also played for the Yankees, but he only wore the number 30 with the White Sox and the Expos. None of the three wore it for their entire career, and I would argue that some of their numbers, it's going to be, I think, hard to determine for this one. But I'm going to lean to Tim Raines.
That's what I was going to think, that just because he's worn it for for 19 years.
Mm-hmm.
Nolan Ryan wore it for 12. But if you look at it, I wanted to say Raines. I went back to Ryan, and now I'm with you on Raines. He's not that far off in WAR, but he wore that many more years.
Yeah, Nolan wore it for 12 years, from 1968 to 1979. He went 167 and 158 with a 3.15 ERA. He did strike out 2,903 in that uniform in just 2,688 innings. So he pretty much had a Hall of Fame career within those 12 years with nearly 3,000 strikeouts. But Ken Griffey Jr., he had it for 6 years from 2000 to 2005. He hit 138 home runs. His batting average, like, listen to this slash line: 276, 369, 539. So that's an OPS of 908, OPS plus of 131. He had 110 doubles. He had a couple of years where he was injured and missed a little bit of time. He averaged 98 games within those 6 years. So I'm leaning Tim Raines. And that's not where I thought I was going to be. But in his career, 170 home runs, a 294 batting average with 69.4 WAR. He got an OPS plus of 123.
No other player has worn it more than Tim Raines. He owns the jersey, the number 30.
Yeah.
If you look at not seniority of how many years, no one else is. Let's see, 14. Did I just see was the next closest?
Yeah.
16. Orlando Cepeda. Dang it.
Cepeda. Yeah. That's okay, Michael. We'll work on your pronunciations later. But yeah, I think we're going to lean Tim Raines on this one because of another thing leaning towards it is Ken Griffey had a ton of gold gloves in his career. None of them were wearing the number 30 in those 6 years.
He already bulked up a little bit when he went back to the Cincinnati Reds.
Yep, and then he ate all that Skyline chili. He had all that Skyline chili here in Cincinnati. No comment. But I'm going with Tim Raines. He was an all-star 6 times in that number, 7 times in that number. This is the Tim Raines episode number 30.
There we go.
I was surprised about that one. I think you were too, right? I didn't think Tim Raines was going to be the one that popped into my head.
No, of course, as I do always, I'm not a good jersey number except if we talked about number 34, and that could be a hard one for me when we get there.
Yes.
But
you'll have research on one player. And one player only. And you're going to be like, this is the hill I stand and die on.
Oh, it's going to be so hard, Brandon.
I haven't even looked at it, but I'm already anticipating. And that will be a month from now as we do episode number 34. But this is episode 30 of Barrels and Barrels, a Bourbon and Baseball podcast. Thank you for joining us. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. Thank you. And we'd love to have you, and we hope you enjoy this podcast. You can find us on Instagram, Barrels and Barrels Pod, as well as Facebook, which we are rapidly growing on. We're now more than 500 followers. Last week, we were just around 478. So we've jumped up quite a bit in the last week. You can also find us on YouTube and subscribe to our YouTube page. Some of you may be watching us right now there. Hit the subscribe button below. You'll get more additional and just YouTube exclusive content, which we've been trying to put out daily, if not every other day for the most part. Just find us there at Barrels and Barrels Pod. We're putting out YouTube shorts, some in-person videos from baseball games, or even just some highlight videos going out there. So go check us out there, Barrels and Barrels Pod. Again, the middle initial is N for the and part of Barrels and Barrels. Twitter, Barrels and Barrels. You can find us there. We're up to nearly 200 followers. We're growing there as well. And then also, if you're listening to us, you're probably listening on Spotify or Apple, but you can also find us on Stitcher, Amazon, Google, and iHeartRadio podcasts. Big news, Michael. We got another rating. And we are now up to 16 out of 16 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. Still 10 out of 10 5-star on Spotify. So we would love for you to rate us, to review us. Tell us what you think about our podcast. And if you write a review...
We love the comments. We love the comments. Good and bad.
If you write a review, whether you rip us a new one or if you write something nice...
Or you kick us in the nuts.
You kick us in the nuts. And... speaking of kicking us in the nuts, I don't know how that transition was going to go. I was going to try to.
Hey.
I was doing. But
you
also
roll with it.
One other way to get us is by email. Email is barrelsandbarrels@gmail.com. And if you want to email us, you can maybe emailing us about merch. We've got t-shirts to give away. Well, not give away, but to sell. And also hats. Michael's got a hat on. We're going to try to do a pre-order for that. So if that's something that interests you, you may want to reach out to us there. We've got stickers as well. I've sent a couple of those out here as of late. So reach out to us for that by emailing us, barrelsandbarrels@gmail.com. So this is episode 30, Barrels and Barrels, a Bourbon and Baseball podcast. We start with whiskey usually, and that is what we're going with tonight. This week, another Blue Note. But this one,
one of
a
my
little
favorites.
different. We've done a Blue Note Juke Joint store pick. We've done the Blue Note Cask Strength Series, which is the highest rated whiskey we've done so far in our short time of a podcast. And this one is Blue Note Las Notas, which means it is finished in Las Notas barrels. So this is a finished bourbon, Michael, coming from Blue Note. And the reason it gets the Las Notas name is because it's a collaboration with an Argentinian wine Company by Jean-Claude, who is a very big name in French wine. Jean-Claude Barreau, he's widely considered one of the most renowned French winemakers in the last 50 years. So he found this winemaking paradise in Argentinian winery called Tapiz, and that's where he handcrafted the Las Notas wine. And then what happened is Blue Note got the Las Notas barrels and aged this whiskey in it.
Oh my goodness.
So there's a lot to this.
There's more. So it was. Yeah, I was just gonna ask what's different in the Blue Note. What's the French Oak one?
Crossroads.
Crossroads. Yeah. And
so
then
that's
you
just
got into Jean-Claude, and I was all of a sudden I was like, all right, here we go.
Here we go. So the difference is the Crossroads is just basically a toasted barrel because they're finishing it in that French oak, I believe, a toasted French oak as a finish, and that's normally around $30. But this is an MSRP of $59.99, coming from BR Distilling Company, which of course is Blue Run. And again, this is finished in these Las Notas wine barrels. But here's the deal, is the wine barrels were actually French oak barrels to begin with. So it is a regular bourbon, then aged for an additional year in these Las Notas wine barrels that were French oak barrels. So these barrels were sent across the ocean from, I believe, Argentina to Memphis to finish this. This was bottled in 2022. I do have the mash bill for you. I know you're the fan of Mr. Mash. We're going to call you Michael Mr. Mash Burns. So we've got 70, 21, 9. So 70% corn, 21% rye, 9% malted barley. Does that ring a bell?
No, you just called me the Mr. Mash Bill, and I don't know any mash bills that you talk about.
So that's Green River Distilling. So, Green River Distilling, that's who distilled this. I'm pretty sure it's opening out there as well. This is a 4-year.
Do they distill all of the Blue Notes?
I think at this point they are, yes, as a all together. I think they're at one point they were sourcing from Dickel and also from MGP, but I think fully anything we've touched in the last couple of weeks. I don't know. Remember the cask strength had part Dickel to their mash bill there?
9-year one?
Yeah, the 16 year. The cask strength series that it's right here.
Oh, I know. Oh, the one that we rated really high that we loved.
Yeah. The Special Reserve Cask Finish series. That one had some Dickel to it. Tennessee whiskey had 19-year-old Dickel. So this is going to be Green River Distillate. Now, the proof on this varies because this is also a single barrel. So when they dumped these, they didn't blend them and make it a small batch. This is a single barrel. So our proof on this bottle is proof 120.3. It looks like it was a store pick for Big Corks out in Germantown, Tennessee. Hey, Germantown, isn't that where our guy Kyle, Braves and Bourbon, is in Tennessee? I think that's where he's at. So Kyle, maybe you've seen this. I don't know. So Big Corks, maybe you've been there before in Germantown, Tennessee. So again, this comes at 120.3. That's 60.15% ABV. This was barrel number 9. Again, 4 years old, and then aged additionally for 1 year in those French Oak Las Notas barrels. Any questions, Mikey?
What are the Las Notas barrels? Just a certain, do you know the wine type that was, or is that?
So it looks like it is does that say Cabernet? Okay, so types of grapes are Petit Verdot, Verdot, Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, and Merlot. So I'm assuming
those are all
it
red.
might be a blend. It's all red, yes.
Yeah.
So this is a red wine. Region is Argentina, and it's Tapiz is the winery. So have you poured yours yet?
I have poured it. Of course, to get the aromas building in my glass of this thing. I'm so excited for this thing. Because I like a good red wine. I don't choose it all the time, but because I grew up Catholic, so grew up drinking red wine.
Body of Christ.
The blood of Christ. But yeah.
This is
but
the
anyways,
blood of Christ.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sniffing this thing, wow. Great nose of
Mm-hmm.
of Cabernet.
Yeah.
Um, Immediately get that wine fruit right away.
Yeah, I already put mine into the Pix app, which I told you I was going to try to be better about. Since this is my bottle, I figured I would just tackle that. I got some butterscotch up front. That was actually the first note I got, and some caramel. There was a little bit of like what was the word I was thinking of? A shortbread cookiness to the nose. But also, I got really big hints of cherry and raspberry and some of that grape coming through, which is from the wine. Um, I had a little bit of lemon come in and some leather and even a little bit of that oak. There's some oak to it. You definitely get some of the oak, but
for sure.
not huge, but there's some decent oak, I think.
Yeah, I definitely can tell this is a bourbon. What do you think of the color? Do you think there's any red hue to it?
There is
On that
definitely a
color?
mahogany. I think mahogany is the word I would. Many leather-bound books, and my apartment smells of rich mahogany. I think there's some red to it.
I just splashed this all over my mustache. As I was trying to sniff it. I splash it all over myself there. Oh, it smells good.
It
I
smells
get
delicious.
it's not overpowering fruit.
No,
The one that I always think of overpowering fruit is barrel dovetail.
yeah,
That's one
you
that
do
is
not like
so
barrel
fruity.
dovetail.
No, I do. I've come back to it. I've come back to it. When I
Yeah.
first had it, it was overpowering, and I'm wondering how this is going to taste. But this is Las Notas. This is one
Mm-hmm.
barrel, not a blend of many.
Right. Have you given it a little nip yet? A little sip?
A little nip. I like that. No, I've not given a little nip. I saw you did there. What's that coating doing for you?
I think instantly you feel, I think, a dryness to it, and that's definitely in my mind the red wine. Right? It's got a little dry, but it's got a carbonation feel to it to me, like a little pop roxy. I know I've used that before, but I think it's like carbonated, right? Not necessarily that the whiskey's carbonated, but that's kind of the mouth feel I get out of this. It's kind of sharp as well, like a dry sharpness, if that makes sense. But that's the initial blast I get. There's a tingle right up front. I've got a little bit of everything. There's a lot going on with this.
That was crazy. It's almost like it engulfed my mouth, but in a different way. Like in a. This sounds weird, but it tasted like I have a tube in my mouth, and it didn't hit the center of my palate.
Oh, okay. So like you're getting sprayed at the dentist?
Something I don't know, but the way when I like that, I don't know if it's the dryness that's coming through of the Las Notas of the red wine
Mm-hmm.
that did that. That could that's what I would expect of a dry wine to do.
Mm-hmm.
But that slapped me, and I really couldn't focus on anything else
I'll
except
dive right back in.
that dryness there.
Yeah, I thought it was dry. I do get a ton of flavor to it, though. There is so much going on.
Oh my gosh.
Is there one flavor that sticks out the most?
Fireworks.
Fireworks in your mouth?
Not like
Is it
pop
like
rocks, but like it's like
a
I
carbonation, almost like a hot carbonation to me is what I thought it felt like.
like someone just blew off a bunch of fireworks, that smell of gunpowder. That's almost what I get here, what I in a mouthfeel. Like when you smell it and then it's like a smoky, I guess it would be just like a smokiness to it.
Yeah, like you talking
Yeah.
like the sulfur you smell from a firework?
Yes, that's
Yeah?
what I would get like a mouthfeel here.
You're getting a sulfuric mouthfeel?
It's just like the way it's coating my mouth.
Okay. It like explodes in your mouth.
Yes, it just goes sideways. I don't get anything in the middle. Maybe that maybe I need to go get a test from Walgreens here or something. I'm getting no taste on the middle there. I'm getting on the sides though. It explodes fantastically.
So what are your notes? Like what do you get?
Let me take another sip here so I can talk about it. It doesn't linger. Does it linger for you at all?
A little bit. It dries out to me real quick.
Yeah.
But I do think that there's so much coming at you with this. There's a lot to like take in. It's
It's like fireworks.
it explodes in flavor, but also like there's a dryness right to it right away. I've said it a couple times. It's like a carbonation, but pop roxy carbonation for me. I got dark chocolate. There's a little bit of a bitterness to it, but there's also some sweet capabilities to it. I've got a little bit of leather coming through, but the big thing here was really just like cherry. I got some grape, molasses, even some coconut trying to come through, some rye. The oak I definitely get on the back half as it starts to dry out. And then the finish, I would say it's a little, I'd say short medium on the finish. It's not a long lasting finish, but what are you doing with your mouth there?
I was trying to get more taste out of it, pull more notes out of my cheeks there.
Yeah, that's what she said. And but yeah, there's a dryness to it. There's a whole lot going on with this.
It's different because usually when we have something that's complex, I feel it throughout, and I only get this on my sides of my mouth here. I think that's that dryness or the sickness.
It could be the sickness. Yeah, how much you got left in glass?
I've got a good amount, and then still in my bottle too.
A decent swig, and just let it sit in your mouth. Maybe swig it around a little bit.
Yeah, give it a real good chew.
Yeah, I would just like not even do anything. Just let the liquid sit. Do you feel it on the tongue a little more with that?
It still is dry, and it's like a fireworks. It's like, I'm not saying sulfur, but it feels like I'm in the middle of the street and people just blew fireworks off, and that's the toastiness, smokiness I'm getting in my mouth.
I'm calling CVS or Walgreens right now. I'm gonna get a,
hey, my water
test shipped to you.
My vitamin water here tasted just fine.
Okay. I've got, like, when I hold it in the mouth like that, there's, excuse me for all the immature people out there, but there's a creaminess to it.
Nuttiness?
I do feel, no, a creaminess to
Okay.
it. I think that there's, it coats well. Overall, I think this is a fantastic pour, and I'm going to go out there and I'm going to say all-star again.
I've never had a first like a palate tasting like this before, where it's just dry. I'm enjoying the pour. I'm gonna save just a little bit of this pour for like a week from now to make sure I'm not sick or anything, and that's why I'm tasting fireworks. But it smells delicious. Even with that dryness, I still enjoy this thing.
Yeah. What do you rate it?
I would probably give this guy an everyday player for that
Everyday
dryness.
player.
Yes, I still enjoy the flavors that are there, but that dryness, I don't know what to do with it. It's unlike anything I've had before. And
it's definitely interesting and it's different. But it's not a bad different. I think that there are some who try too hard to differentiate themselves, but I think what they did with this one is very well done. So again, really enjoy what Blue Note's doing. Fantastic pour here. I don't think this is as good as their cast strength finish series. That one's leaps and bounds. That may be our whiskey of the year right now. Is that cast strength finish series? But this is very good. And I went with an all-star. Michael went with an everyday player. That is on our Barrels and Barrels, a Bourbon and Baseball podcast rating scale. If you're new to the program, we rate it in a baseball standard, and that is going from Hall of Fame, which is top of the top. Only 1% of baseball players make it to the Hall of Fame. There's only 1% of bourbons and whiskeys that we would rate as Hall of Famers, the best of the best. Next is the all-star. Every team's got an all-star or multiple of them. And just like on your shelf, hopefully you've got a couple of bottles that you may praise. You may think they're the best bottles on your shelf. Those are most likely your all-stars. As Michael just mentioned, he's got an everyday player.
These everyday players are guys who you're gonna continuously go to. You can rely on day in and day out. But then there are the guys who you still enjoy and are great in certain situations. And Brandon, those are our bench players, right?
Yeah, bench players are like a pinch hitter or the guy who gets a spot start as a pitcher. He's not your top 5 starting pitcher, but maybe a guy who comes in out of the minors, or even one of those guys who's on the bench and gets a day off for maybe your star player. He comes in, he fills the gap, and does what he needs to do, and that's one of those bottles that you mix up your pours. You don't go to it every week, maybe every other week, but it's one of those that you're happy to have, but it's not the best thing on your shelf. Yeah, dessert bourbon. Maybe it's got a finish to it, right? Where it's not something you're going for every day. And then finally, you're going for the DFA, which is the final one on our list. That means you're off the team. Get out of here. We don't want you on our shelf. We don't want you in our house. Or if we do, you're probably
going to get mixed with Coke.
Yep, you're a Coke mixer, or that's the one you give to your significant other when you're like, why don't you just drink this one? I don't want it. You mix it with whatever you want.
Yeah, or it's that one friend that comes over and says, "Give me your favorite right now." You see that?
What's your best? What's your favorite? I think that was Bourbons with Friend podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Paul and Connor over there at Bourbon with Friends. But really good pour here. We just went with, I went with another all-star, Michael, an everyday player. So a very good pour.
I'm glad you have a bottle of it.
Yeah. I've been holding back because I didn't want to smash this. But, I mean, look at how much I've had out of it. And
even in that bottle,
I've only had it a couple months.
To it.
Yeah, even the bottle, it's got a little bit of a redness to it. So thank you to Blue Note for sending this over. We give our honest opinions on this. So if we didn't like it, we wouldn't have rated it what we rated it.
Believe me.
But
we are not afraid.
No, Michael, not afraid at all to
go
DFA.
Over to Bobby Badax and see if I can get a title with him, a sponsorship
from Bobby.
Whenever we DFA anything, this thing is bad.
Yeah, just Bobby cuts into the podcast. That would be great. But this has been Barrels and Barrels, a Bourbon and Baseball podcast, the bourbon portion of it. Before we jump into the baseball part, usually we use trivia. I'm going to tell a quick little story here. I made a trip to Chicago this past weekend while we're sticking with bourbon. I met a couple of people in our bourbon community. John Oliva, that is at the Dram Daddy on Instagram, and Alex, the Bourbon Rebellion, hung out with them on Friday, had some great pours. I think we had 8 or 9 different pours, which were all great, but Penelope
like a great lineup you guys had.
The lineup we had, John's got a ton of bourbon and a ton of whiskeys, and we tried anything from Hemingway Rye to Jack 10, and then we jumped and finished to a Penelope Rio, which was, I'm telling you, it's great. And then also on Saturday, I got to hang out with more whiskey people, more bourbon people. Malloy's Finest Spirits in Glen Ellen, Illinois. I think it's Glen Ellen, but the address said Wheaton, but they call it the Glen Ellen store. So I don't know. I'm going to say Glen Ellen. But there was a whiskey fest there. There were 50 different whiskeys to try. Tried a decent amount. Walked away with Still Austin cask strength. It's right here. I already popped it open. And we are going to have a review on that here soon because, Mikey, I just shipped you out a package. You got a care package on the way. But hung out there. Hung out with some cool people from Blue Run. Met Kevin from there. Ginger Jess on Instagram. She's with Sagamore Spirit. But tried a bunch of different whiskey. It was real cool. So if you ever get a chance to go to maybe your local liquor store and do a tasting like that, or a fest if they hold something, take the opportunity because you get these little, I call them like cough syrup samples, because that's about how much they pour, right? What you would give a kid in cough syrup, but not to get a little bit of the palate and the flavoring, but not where it's a full pour. So you can try multiple of them. But it was really cool. It was really fun. Hung out with JW Bourbon. That's Jamie. 630 Whiskey. Aaron. Got to meet Ramiro, who is 2221 Woodworks. Dan the Taco Man, as well as Rob's Garage. So all the cool people were there. Missed out on a couple people, but really cool time this past weekend.
It's awesome. Yeah. It looked like you had a lot as an offering there at Malloy's there. It looked like it was crowded.
It was packed. There had to be about 500-600 people that showed up through the entire event. I don't know if that's an accurate number, but I'd say that's a pretty decent number. But got to try some good stuff. And speaking of good stuff, there's some good stuff going in baseball, Michael. And the Cincinnati Reds are the hottest team as we start this podcast. And currently they are up 7-2 in the bottom of the 5th versus the Colorado Rockies. So it looks like they may go on to win 10 in a row. If they do that today, that would be tied with the 2012 team for the longest in the last 11 years. They hadn't won 8 in a row until 2012, and they've done that. Of course, 9 last night. Today, game 10. If they win it, 2012 was the year they last won 10 games in a row. Who was the winning pitcher in game 10?
In 2012?
In 2012.
Let's go with, I can see him right now. He's a righty. Bronson Arroyo.
Bronson Arroyo is a great guess, but that is incorrect. It is Matt Latos. Do you remember that guy?
Latos. I do remember that guy. There's a great, after his career, he still tried pitching. And
an independent ball.
Yeah, he's the guy who hit a guy, walked towards the batter after hitting him, threw down his glove, and just started brawling with the guy. It was great.
Matt Latos.
Supposed to be a big thing for the Reds.
He what? Well, they think they traded him to the Padres, or did they get him from the Padres? One of those two, because he played for the Padres at one point of his career. I think they traded him to the Padres, and they got back the first baseman, Alonso. Not Pete Alonso, but...
Oh, and that's when then they traded Rizzo to the Cubs because they got Alonso. They figured Alonso was their future, not Rizzo.
Right. So thank you, Reds. So we get a World Series out of it. But that has been the transition that we use with trivia to our baseball portion of the podcast. So I already told a story. We talked about how I went to Chicago and I went and did some whiskey stuff, but I also did some baseball stuff. If you aren't following us on YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, or Twitter, you would have seen that I was at Wrigley Field to catch the Cubs. They played the Pirates, who they're playing tonight, and they're up currently 3-0 after a Tauchman home run, and Nico Horner in there with a headfirst triple, in the top of the 8th.
Let's go, the windup and the pitch, and Nico rips it into the left field gap, and he's hustling, baby. He's hustling.
Yeah, so I tell you what, he gets a triple. I bet you $5. No?
The throw, and wow, a head first sliding triple. Would you look at that?
I predict the future, Michael. But of course, I am about 10 seconds ahead of Michael on my feed. Somehow that always seems to happen, except the Judge home run last year. Judge home run 62. But and you can hear that was episode number 2 last year in 2022. But as I was saying, I went and saw the Cubs. They played Pirates last week. They one of the hottest teams in baseball. Saw some great baseball at Wrigley Field. I do want to give a shout out. On Thursday night in the bleachers, I was sitting with Cece and Christina. They were awesome people to talk baseball with. Christina, a fellow season ticket holder, but it was Cece's birthday, her 26th birthday. The Cubs got a victory, 7-2. But I made an Yeah.
At the game?
Kind of.
Oh.
I
think where you're going.
So,
with the wins?
It was June 15th. No, not that That was the second It was June 15th. That's basically summer. I've played baseball in Chicago in May and June where it's 100 degrees. Forecast was for a high of 85. I'm a meteorologist. If you're new to the podcast, I do weather on television for a living. I forecast the weather. I didn't look at a forecast. I figured it was going to be warm.
It was June.
It was 85 degrees at 1 o'clock. At first pitch, it was fucking 49 degrees outside. And it was howling.
What was it?
49 degrees.
Fucking 49 degrees.
Yeah. And the wind chill was even cooler. So I held off. I made it to the 4th inning, and I'm just wearing a T-shirt and jeans.
Great T-shirt as it is.
It was a good T-shirt. It was our Barrels and Barrels T-shirt.
That's right. Great T-shirt.
Comfy shirt. What a throw.
But maybe it's a comfy shirt, but maybe not the warmest shirt, huh?
No, not the warmest shirt.
We can't push that on people that it's warm.
No, it's not warm. I wouldn't say that it's going to get you through a blizzard or it's going to get you through a cold spell. But I break down and I had to go to the gift shop and on the concourse and buy a new hoodie. So I'm the new proud owner of this Cubs City Connect hoodie.
So did you go with the cheapest one or something that you kind of liked and spent a lot?
I went with Not the cheapest one, but cheaper. There were a couple that were about 100, 150. And I'll tell you what, they were not anticipating this either because they were bringing out boxes of hoodies and they were bringing in blankets. And they were like, oh, well, we can capitalize on these sales. But this one was $89.99. It's a pretty thin hoodie, but I tell you what, it's pretty fashionable. Hold on, I'm going to put it on.
Yeah. Yeah, I was laughing whenever Brandon sent me the picture of him. What did I'm a meteorologist and I didn't forecast or look at the forecast. That's hilarious.
Yeah, I didn't look at the forecast. I didn't do the forecast because I was like, I don't need to because it's going to be 85. But yeah, so I got this hoodie. That's my story. Sticking to it. I like the hoodie.
What shirt did you? So you wore our Barrels and Barrels shirt. You got a new hoodie out of it. And then what shirt did you wear the next day?
Well, I also got ALS Cubs shirt at the bleachers on Thursday. That was the handout for the game. So I put that shirt over our shirt, and then I put the hoodie on over it. So I had 3 layers, and it was still cold. But Cubs got the win then, 7-2. Next day, I went with my dad for Father's Day on Friday. Had to wear my bleachers 120 Wrigley Field scoreboard shirt from Obvious Shirts. Fantastic shirts. Also got my daughter a shirt from Obvious Shirts. You'll like this one.
That is perfect.
It says, I'm allergic to St. Louis. So she can wear this. And it's also great because she can wear it in Cincinnati and people will still like it. And it still fits.
That's great. That's great.
We're not sponsored by Obvious Shirts, but obviously we love them. And obviously we love Rick Sutcliffe, who's a former Cub, Cy Young Award winner in 1984. He quote tweeted our tweet. So we got kind of semi-famous on Twitter. That's why I said you need to check us out
Celebrity.
on Twitter.
Yeah, celebrity.
Yes. So Friday, they got a big win. The Cubs beat the Orioles 10-3. Very great week at Wrigley Field. Fun time. Oh, they called him safe. They called him safe. Yeah, sorry. Amazing throw. He got his hand in there. That's what she said. I definitely have to rate this podcast explicit. But that was a heck of a throw by the left fielder, Palacios. Man, wow. The catcher just didn't get the tag. Hedges just didn't get the tag on him, I don't think. But really cool play.
Celebrations, Seiya and Horner.
But yeah, I had to head out to Wrigley Field, and I did want to throw something else out there. I'm kind of disappointed in Ian Happ. He went 3 for 4. He had Cycle Watch, but that's not what I'm disappointed in. I don't know if you listen to the Compound Podcast. That's Ian Happ's podcast, as well as Dakota Meckes, as well as Zach Short. But they're sponsored by Parse Rum. No free ads. We're not sponsored by Parse Rum, but they say in the podcast that it's just, the rum for whiskey drinkers. So maybe we'll have to do a Parse Rum review.
Bro, I had a aged rum. It was aged 22 years. It's one of the most delicious things I've had.
Yeah. Well, Parse makes a 3-year, a 9-year, and a 12-year. So I'm going to have to tag them in this. But so Parse Rum is their thing. That's who sponsors the Compound Podcast. And on the podcast, they do a thing where Ian says, when I say Parse, you say rum. And then he says Parse, and the other guys, in your case, rum. Would have to say rum. So I screamed it from the bleachers. When I say Parse, you say rum, Parse. And he didn't turn around. Didn't acknowledge me at all. So I got big leagued by Ian Happ. So thanks, Ian.
That's why he was sat the next day. He went 3 for 4.
That is what it was.
Who sits a hot player like that?
Yeah, I talked with Rossi, and that's why he got the bench on Friday. I'm just kidding. But Ian Happ had a great game. He went he went single, double, triple, 3 for 4. He had 4 RBIs in that game. So he had a heck of a week last week.
Great games you were at.
Yeah, and speaking of a heck of a week, the players of the week were announced today. Oh, he just struck out, and he's getting into it with the umpire as I'm talking about Ian Happ. He's like, that ball is not even in the strike zone. Yeah, that was not a strike. That ball was about a ball and a half outside. I love how we can do play-by-play while we podcast, and we hopefully... Oh, that ball was way up, and it was sort of outside. Even the ump kind of hesitated. Okay, well, moving back on. Players of the week were announced today because of the holiday yesterday, but the NL Player of the Week goes to... I thought there were 2 players who could have won this, but it goes to Michael Harris of the Atlanta Braves, who had a great week. About time he started to play. He led the league in batting average at 556, slug 963. He had 3 home runs, 2 doubles. He had 9 RBI. I don't even think he was the best player on his team last week, but he got the NL Player of the Week.
Yeah, if it tells you anything about the kind of year he's having, he's still hitting. In the last 6 games, he's hitting 522, but he's still batting 248 on the year with only 7 stolen bases, and that's supposed to be the guy's MO.
And he was the Rookie of the Year last year, so he's having a little bit of a sophomore slump, but he just came back the last week with his best week of the year, and we'll see if he gets hot. Man, I don't know if there's anybody in the NL that can compete with the Braves.
No, absolutely not. If Acuña's and Michael Harris right next to him in the outfield does that, and then, I mean, even Ozuna from the Braves is doing pretty good as well as a little bit of bounce back, hitting home runs. He's not just something sitting out there in left field. He's actually having a good year, and that's Ozuna from the Braves.
Ozuna from the Braves, but he's not even the guy who I think is the best of the entire NL last week, and he was his teammate. He was a left fielder, and that was Eddie Rosario, who had an incredible week as well. That dude had a fantastic week. I think he hit 5 home runs. He hit 5 home runs, 11 RBIs. His OPS last week was 1.614, which was the best in the National League. 1.6. Yet Michael Harris got it. But either way, both of them deserved it. I'm glad that one of the Braves won it. In the other league is the best player on the planet right now, Shohei Ohtani.
I was still thinking NL for a second.
No, Shohei Ohtani.
Sitting here looking at the Braves statistics for the last week, as they did have a great week. But yes, Shohei Ohtani. This is not his first time winning Player of the Week, is it?
It's his fifth career, but it's his first one this year.
Okay.
He's been in the league since 2018, so that's one a year for the last couple of years, and 2021 was his MVP campaign. But the monster week that Ohtani had, 6 home runs in 7 games, 6 and 7, 2 doubles, drove in 12. His average is 435, but get this, his slugging was 1.304. His slugging. And he had an OPS of 1.892. Oh, and he got a pitcher win in one of the games last week, too.
Goodness gracious.
Right? Like, how incredible.
You know what's great is one of our followers, Daniel Howard, had Shohei Ohtani not in his offensive lineup with that in the week. He just had.
He didn't have him in his lineup?
You have to, with Ohtani, you have to choose hitter or pitcher. You can't do both. And he chose pitcher, which wasn't bad, but, I mean, as a hitter, like you just said, 1.8 OPS. 1.8.
Yeah, nearly 1.9. 1.8, but nearly 1.9. Insane week. He's having
5 points. Goodness gracious.
Yeah, the entire month of June that he's having this year is insane, but just his line so far this year, he's hitting 300. He's got a 384 OBP, slugging 632. So he's got an OPS over 1,000, and that leads the entire league. He's leading the league in home runs. And speaking of the league leaders in home runs, he leads Pete Alonso, who just came back, who's got 22. Good. Yeah, he came back this weekend, but Ohtani's got 24. Pete Alonso's got 22. Jorge Soler leads the Marlins and is second in the NL at 21. Matt Olson, there's another Brave, at 20. Kyle Schwarber, Mr. June, is at 20. And then Aaron Judge sits in 6th at 19. And those statistics right there on YouTube on this side. Nope, it's that side, Brandon, on that side of the screen. But Ohtani having another MVP season, man.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't realize what kind of season was having until all of a sudden he took the home run lead for the MLB with, I think, 22.
20
is when he took the lead from Alonso at 21.
Yeah, he tied Alonso at 22, I think.
Okay.
But his month of June is incredible, too. Have you seen any of those numbers?
We're still at June 20th, too. There's still a week of June, a week and a half of June left.
So here's his June slash line. 400, 500, 938. So an OPS of 1438 with 9 home runs, 20 RBI, which leads the league in all of those categories, 16 runs. He's got 6 doubles and a triple, 26 hits. And that's just on the batting side of things. Remember, he's also a starting pitcher. He's 1-1. His ERA is not great, but it's a 4.76, which is a 5 in the line. Like if your fifth starter had a 4.76 ERA, you'd be okay with it.
Right.
So
right.
even though he's not pitching like an ace, he's hitting like the best player on the planet, and he's also providing some pitching. 15 strikeouts in 17 innings. He has given up a couple of home runs, but he did also pitch against the best offense in the league at the Texas Rangers last week and still got the win.
Yeah, the Rangers can do some damage, and for him to limit them like that and get the win, like you just said, the guy's good.
Yeah, we're almost halfway through the season, and I would say he's probably your MVP at this point. And if we harken back to our predictions episode, we both picked him as our AL MVP. So everything is right in line.
Everything is awesome.
Everything is cool when you got Shohei.
That's pretty good.
We're going to have to create some parody songs, too. Maybe that's how we're going to make it famous, Michael. But speaking of famous, we're going streaking through the quad and into the gymnasium. There are some hot baseball teams right now. In the National League overall.
In the National League mostly, yes.
There are 6 teams who last week were 7-3 and better, and really the Marlins were the only team at 7-3. There were 4 other teams at 8-2, and then the Reds at 9-1. I want to touch on the Phillies, who I looked at the standings the other day. I knew the Phillies got hot, and this is a shout out to Dave Edwards, who follows us on Facebook. But the Phillies are 4 games over 500 coming into today.
Yeah, the Phillies. I mean, finally coming back after an abysmal start. From being the World Series NL representative, and then having Trey Turner having that WBC, the Phillies expected to be, I think, I predicted them to win it all. I'm pretty sure. Go back to the World Series and win it all. But hey, they made it in as the 6th seed last year. First time to have a 6th seed. That's all you got to do. Get in.
That's all you got to do is get in. But I mentioned going streaking. In the month of June, the teams with the 5 best records in the month of June, all in the National League. The Braves are 13-3. The Phillies, we just talked about, at 13-4. The Giants are 12-4. The Marlins are the Giants. San Francisco 12-4 in the month of June. 2 of those losses coming to the Cubs. Miami Marlins are 13-5, and the Cincinnati Reds are 12-6. The other team that's streaking, our Cubs, they're 10-7 in the month of June. But more importantly, after tonight, they'll have 9 out of 11 in their last 11 games.
Go.
Yeah, so they've played much better baseball. They're in contention, but the first place Cincinnati Reds.
Not to poo-poo on that, but the Reds sweeped the Cubs. Did you see that statistic? When the Reds swept the Cubs a couple weeks ago, if they'd gone the other way around, the Cubs would be right there tied with Milwaukee in first place. But anyways, yes, the first place Reds. What I feel like has been, I think this is the furthest the Reds have been in first place since 2012.
Maybe 2012. Yeah.
Poor Joey Votto, man. That's what all I got to say is the guy has not had a winning team most of his major league career with the Reds since over a decade ago.
Yeah, like 2010, 2011, 2012, I think they were really good teams. But since then, didn't they make the playoffs in 2020 in the shortened season with Trevor Bauer winning Cy Young? Or did the Cardinals make that playoff? I don't know who won that division. I can't remember. Did the Cubs win that division in 2020? That was that shortened season in 2020. And as I look, the Cubs did win that division. The Reds finished 31-29, so not as good as I thought. So the Cubs won the division at 34-26. So yeah, they haven't even had that great of a team in a long time. And speaking of Joey Votto, he's back. He came back yesterday. Rotator cuff surgery, 10 months to the day from the surgery he returned. And what's he doing his first home run? Joey Votto still bangs. He hit a bomb to right field in his second at-bat.
I loved the video that he put out. Did you see that video they put out with his red
the cowboy
suit?
hat? The cowboy hat, the bolo tie, and the red suit. Oh.
Walking out. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
If you were a Reds fan, you were digging it.
living in Reds country right now, I can tell you what, people are going nuts. And it's cool. It's cool to be in a city where there's a baseball team that's having success. Coming into today, they were 38-35. Looks like they're going to go up to 39-35 because they're up 8-2 over the Rockies in the bottom of the 7th. So we can basically say it's 10 in a row for the Reds, most likely. This first time, as I mentioned in our trivia question, since 2012. But the Marlins are playing great baseball. They're near the top of their division. If it wasn't for the Braves, the Marlins would be one of the best teams in the National League. And then the Arizona Diamondbacks have been playing well. They were only 6-4 in the last 10 games, but still they're continuing to win. But the Giants, they're only 3.5 back in the NL West. They just went 8-2 last night.
They're helping my prediction of the Dodgers not making the playoffs. Helping it.
So the Dodgers are 4-6 in their last 10, and they're still 39-33.
That's
and
okay. Okay. They don't have anybody. They got Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, and Crickets.
And if the playoffs were to start today, the Dodgers would be in as the 6th seed.
So we're not far off. The Phillies are one game out of that.
Phillies are one game out. The Brewers
baby.
are 2 games out. The Cubs are 5 games out of the wild card, but they are 3.5 games back of first in their division. So the Cubs playing great baseball. The Reds playing great baseball. Giants, D-backs, Marlins, Phillies, and Braves. And the Braves, we haven't really talked much about their success other than the players of the week, but they just went 8-2 in the last week. They're on a 6-game winning streak going into Philly this weekend.
And they had a 7-game winning streak last week.
And you
lost
blew that.
And just I think might have to go on location or something if I get 7 this time. Change it up a little bit.
Right now, they are on the top of the 9th, and they are up. Bottom of the 9th. It's 4-1, and Iglesias has 1 out in the bottom of the 9th. So looks like
Strider
they made
on the hill tonight. He only gave up 1 run. Finally, he's looking like Spencer Strider. He did give up 8 hits against a hot Phillies lineup with 9 Ks, but maybe this is Spencer Strider righting the ship.
Mm-hmm. And Ranger Suarez was the pitcher for the Phillies coming into this game. He had only given up 1 run in the entire month of June, and he only gave up 1 run tonight. So he's gone 26 innings this month with just 2 earned runs. Very good stuff from him. He had 7 strikeouts. He's been one of the best pitchers in the league here in the month of June. Him and Taijuan Walker are really the resurgent part of that rotation for the Phillies coming back. So really good stuff in that division. That's a fun division. That NL East.
If only the Mets are going to Met. The Mets are supposed to have that star-studded rotation of Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander. They had Taijuan Walker these last few years.
Mm-hmm.
They've got Kodai Senga, and they're below 500.
Yeah, they're below 500. They are 34-38 coming into play today, and they're currently losing to the Houston Astros 3-0.
We say that so negatively, but it's the club's exact record.
Right. It's just how they got there and the expectations, right? Like the Cubs
We're not spending $80 million on 2 pitchers.
On 2 pitchers, yeah. And they won 100-plus games last year, didn't they? They went 101, like 101-61 last year or something like that?
And got second place.
And got second place. So the Mets were expected to be one of the best teams in baseball, not necessarily just the National League. But maybe I just jinxed the Braves because the Phillies are now at 4-2, and they've got the tying run at the plate as Marsh just got a single, and it's Kyle Schwarber coming to the plate.
Oh, no.
So here we go.
You pouring some more Las Notas there from
Pouring some more
Jean-Claude?
Las Notas. Yeah, no, more Jean-Claude.
I want those 7 points. Don't jinx it. I need Strider to get the win and give me my 7 points.
Well, it looks like it's going to be a good ending in Philly. As we're moving forward, a lot of great baseball, especially in the National League. I saw the Orioles in person. They're an impressive team, even though the Cubs beat them 10-3 last week. They've got some guys like Gunnar. I was watching batting practice. I sent you the video of batting practice, didn't I? Just some of the bombs that they were hitting, and it was gusting in. Like the winds were howling in. So that Orioles team's going to be a fun one. We've already talked quite a bit about them so far this year, but they're still up there, and we'll get to them in our power rankings here shortly. One thing I want to circle back on here, Michael, was last week, right before, or as we were recording, we were talking about the Oakland Athletics. They were going for their 6th win in a row. They got that. They got 7 in a row last week.
They did.
and their 7th win in a row happened during that boycott that we talked about, the reverse boycott. And you and I made a little wager.
Yes, I did. I did come through that. We were very surprised. I didn't think people would turn out. I mean, even when the A's are good, I feel like they don't turn out. But
So I was thinking about that earlier. Go ahead.
I lost that first Barrels and Barrels chug bet there. 0-1.
I wouldn't really call
Barrels
it a
and
chug
Barrels
bet
bets.
because I think you just kind of did like a little sip from the bottle. So
It was 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I was at least trying to fulfill my bet.
Braves win. There's your side part of the podcast. But yes, go check out our Instagram page. Michael with his fulfillment of his sip. Even I think Smooth called you out. Jenny called you out.
I couldn't believe that. Within like 5 minutes, 2 people immediately was like, "Wow, really?
Yeah,
a
that's it.
chug?" I couldn't believe it. The first 2 comments, I was like, "Oh my gosh!"
You got your 7 points. Spencer Strider just got to win. But yeah, so Michael fulfilled it. I do want to give a shout out to the Oakland A's fans, right? Like, hell yeah to you. You guys showed up. You showed out. 27,500 plus, I believe, was the official number. And if I watched the game because I was interested to see what it was going to look like, that place was electric. And I was looking at some tweets today, and a big shout out to Gamer_Athletics, not only on Twitter, but also on Instagram. He was part of the guys who set up that reverse boycott. They were tweeting some things out. Josh Donaldson was talking crap about the Oakland A's back in 2014 about how they have more money than they lead on to it.
Yeah.
And did you see the quote? No. And did you see the quote from Josh Donaldson?
No, I didn't.
You can only see your best players or your favorite players get traded away so much before you stop showing up, right? Like, imagine if the Cubs consistently just traded away Chris Bryant after 1 or 2 years, or Anthony Rizzo after 1 or 2 years, or Derek Lee, or if Kerry Wood was traded
when you still have 3 to 4 years of control,
right?
Deep control.
So
you could hear the anger just talking about it, and that I didn't even get deep into it.
right.
You just
So
started riling me up right there.
but think about that. Like, would you want to go support the team? So I don't think this is on A's fans. I think that this is on ownership.
Oh, absolutely.
And
I mean, in a Moneyball, you could see,
right.
you can see Billy Bean's portrayal of Billy Bean, Brad Pitt, begging the guy for just a little bit, and him sitting there like, no.
Yeah.
Back in 2002.
Yeah.
This is, I mean, so it's been 2 decades of this game that ownership's been playing.
And when they
2
win,
decades.
the fans show up. I wouldn't say that they all show up, but when they win, they come out and they support their team. And it was a really good showing last week. And I do want to give a round of applause to the A's fans. That was a really cool atmosphere. And I do want to make it out to the Coliseum before they move. Because right now it looks like a fait accompli because the bill was passed in Vegas, at least the first step to it, to help fund the stadium. And I think that they're at a point where they can start putting a shovel on the ground, or they're real close to it. So it's more likely that they will be the Vegas A's or one of those names here within the next couple of years.
To say, did you see Bryce Harper even commented that he doesn't think they should be the A's?
No, he thinks that it should be a new franchise that moves in there. Like they expand there rather than move, because he says Oakland is its own brand. But I
can get that. I can get on board with that.
So do I. Like the Vegas Knights, they just won the Cup, and they were an expansion team in the NHL. So it's sad. It's going to be a sad day when the Oakland A's move. But I did want to give the A's fans their flowers, and I did want to puff my chest out because Michael lost a bet.
That's right. Brandon is 1-0 on Barrels and Barrels chug bets.
Yes, 1-0.
I will get you one day, sir. I will get you.
I'm going to get you good. Speaking of attendance from the Oakland A's, I don't know if you saw what happened this weekend, but MLB set an attendance benchmark for Father's Day weekend. Did you see anything
What?
about that? Yeah, they set a
You mean
record,
baseball's not dead?
right? 603,000 fans attended baseball game on Sunday in 16 games. Now, there were 16 because there was a doubleheader between the Boston Red Sox and the Yankees, but that is the highest Sunday attendance in baseball since 2008.
Holy crap.
The best average attendance for a Sunday since 2014, and the first back-to-back weekends of more than 1.5 million fans since 2017. So,
That's fantastic.
I think this is all because of the new rules, man.
I will tell you, I will sit down and know after the World Baseball Classic and they kept doing the overlays of how long, like the one pitcher from the Dodgers, the one pitch versus an entire inning of
Yeah.
the new pitch clock. But yeah, I agree with you.
And you feel it in the stands at a game. You don't necessarily notice it, but I think you feel that there's a lot more action.
I know when I'm sitting on my couch, I can't get up and run to the bathroom real quick or grab another bite to eat or anything. And I'll miss this batter. I know I'll miss the batter. Where if in the previous years, I could get up, cook,
Miss one or two pitches.
brown some ground beef, and only miss, like you said, 2 pitches.
That's crazy. Oh, here's a cool statistic. Adbert Alzolay in the 9th inning or later, 9.1 innings, 0 earned runs.
Let's go. Let's go.
Future closer?
Hey, Jed Hoyer, check this out. The Cubs can compete.
Yes.
Get
Future
them some
closer?
help.
Future closer, maybe? Another quality start. 7th consecutive quality start for Marcus Stroman. His longest active in the MLB. But another stud performance by Stro. I know we're kind of bouncing around a little bit. His ERA is down to 2.28.
Marcus Stroman?
Yeah.
Where's that fall? Do you know where that falls in the lead leaguers at all for
The
starting
league-
pitchers?
The league leaders when it comes to starting pitching.
At one point, it was Justin Steele who was leading the league until he got hurt.
He was up there.
But Marcus Stroman was, I think him, Steele, and Smiley are in the top 10 for ERA.
2.28 would put him 3rd in the major league right now, behind Framber at 2.27, who we gave out as the AL Cy Young a couple of weeks ago at plus 2,000, excuse me. So there's a name to keep an eye on. And then Shane McClanahan has the best ERA in baseball at 2.12. Stroman is 3rd. Luis Castillo is at 8th with a 2.73, and Justin Steele at 2.71. Bryce Elder at 2.60. And I do not think Smiley's in there. Drew Smiley is 24th at 3.38. But still, 3 of the Cubs starters in the top 24 in baseball in ERA. That's good stuff there. Going back to the attendance, we were talking about the attendance being higher because of, I think, the pitch clock. Have you watched any college baseball in the World Series?
No.
It's very
Usually
drastic.
I do when it gets to closer to the finals.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I haven't watched any of it.
Yeah. So if you watch any college baseball, you'll notice the pitch clock right now. Mike, you'll notice the difference because those games seem lethargic and drawn out compared to them. There's still a lot of action and there's still a lot of excitement, but it's a lot slower of a game. Cubs win. Pirates scoreless in 24 consecutive innings versus the Cubs. So back-to-back shutouts for the Cubbies. Cubbies get a dub. That is 9 out of 11. They've won 5 in a row versus the Pirates. Here we go. Let's go. The Rockies are trying to make a comeback. It's 8-5 now, the Reds here in the top of the 8th.
If you didn't know, you were watching right here, Barrels and Barrels Big Innings, sponsored by Blue Note Las Notas. You were getting in-out live action here. We need to hold an episode live on YouTube and Facebook.
Yeah, we definitely have to do that. Maybe we can co-host with Bobby, Bad X Bourbon, maybe do a live co-streaming with him and get our subscriber numbers up. That's another hint to go subscribe to us on YouTube at Barrels and Barrels Pod. So I've been bouncing around a little bit. College World Series, Wake Forest, Florida, and TCU. We're still waiting on the final four team at this point. It's LSU versus Tennessee tonight, and then we will going into the Final Four. But some really cool baseball.
LSU could have two. I think the number one overall pick in Paul Skreenis. The dude looks like an ace. Like he could pitch in the major league today.
He's the guy chucking 100 and pitch 100, isn't he?
Yes,
Yeah.
he looks like Mark Pryor. Body.
Don't do that to him.
I know, but he has Mark Pryor's body. The big legs, big shoulders. But then I think LSU has a top 5 overall pick hitter too.
Mm-hmm.
So getting a little into the MLB draft, which is in July now, the All-Star break.
Yeah.
Which I think overshadows it. I don't like that move. But.
No. But we'll probably, especially you, will probably do more in that hole because you're a prospecty kind of guy and you like the draft a little more than I get into. Yeah. Nerds. L7 weenie. But college baseball, there's also not just college baseball, there's independent league baseball. This had me losing it last Thursday when I saw this was announced. So the Bismarck Larks of the Northwood Leagues Baseball League, it's a college, basically developmental league. So when the college athletes go home for the summer, they go sometimes to these independent league baseball leagues to teach them not only how to play competitively in like an organization, but also it's a wood bat league because in college they use the metal bats. So the Northwoods League, which was actually pretty big when I worked in Duluth, there's a team called the Bismarck Larks. But on July 27th, they are changing their names to the Missouri River Motorboaters.
The what?
The Motorboaters.
Oh, okay. I heard you that time.
What do you think of that?
What's their original name?
The Bismarck Larks.
And what's a lark?
A bird.
And they're going to the motorboaters. Is that
the Missouri River Motorboaters?
I mean, if I look up the definition, I would get a different definition on Urban Dictionary than I would regular Merriam-Webster.
Oh, they're totally going
are they
for the
different?
Merriam-Webster. No, it's they've got a T-shirt that says "Future Motorboater" on it for children.
You motorboat son of a bitch, you.
Just to say, whatever they did, it worked because I bought a hat.
Does it say motorboats on it?
It's just got the motorboat logo on it. It doesn't say motorboaters.
Oh, you didn't want to. You didn't want to go that far to have.
I don't think they've got
flex
a hat
on your
that says
shirt.
motorboaters, but the logo itself is the motor of a boat, so like a boat motor. So
wow, that's awesome.
Pretty funny.
They weren't even on the map, and they just put themselves there.
Agreed, and that's just brilliant marketing. So hats off to the Bismarck Larks or the Missouri River Motorboaters. Go check them out. Definitely have to rank this podcast explicit. Player of the game going to Marcus Stroman. Sorry, we've gotten off topic quite a bit. Speaking of off topic, we're going to get back on topic. It is a Bourbon and Baseball podcast. Let's go to our top 10 power rankings, which is brought to you by absolutely no one yet. And that is your thought. SeatGeek, if you're listening to us, maybe Aidston or, hey, maybe you got a business. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. If you want to sponsor our podcast, reach out to us, barrelsandbarrels@gmail.com. We're cheap. We're not looking for thousands of dollars. Maybe $1 here or there. I don't know.
Hey, throw us a bone here, man.
Hey, help us buy some bourbon.
Hey.
But top 10. Michael, Tampa Bay still at the top of the top for you?
Yes, I definitely have Tampa Bay up there. Texas is still my second team. Powerhouse. I couldn't move them off.
Yeah, I struggled between second and third making these rankings. I did change my second team last week. I had Texas there and Atlanta in third. This week, I am flipping them. I go the Braves 2 and Texas in the third spot, more so just because Texas lost a couple of games and the Braves have just been red hot. They've just won their 7th in a row tonight, but coming into today, and again, these are as of this morning, June 20th, so basically end of play yesterday, June 19th.
So I almost did the same thing. But the Braves' win streak is against Washington, Detroit, and Colorado, where Texas, they did go 1-3, I think, was what probably pushed them into third for you.
For the Angels, yeah.
The Angels, who is a top 10 consensus team, and so that's the reason I went Texas. Still, is that they did face a good team, and that the Braves were beating the bad teams, which we're
Yeah.
supposed to do. But can't argue. I think it's one. They could be flip flopped really easily,
Yeah.
as you see what we did right here, 2-3.
Yeah, and they went 2-3 over the Toronto Blue Jays this past weekend. They shouldn't have won the game on Sunday. They were down 5-0 in the second inning, and they had a big comeback to win 7-5. I watched much of that game. Texas is still a great team, not slamming them there, but the way the Braves played, I don't care who they played. They still won 7 in a row. Their offense has been on fire. The Rangers are still a really good team, and they're in third in my power rankings. But in fourth, I have the Orioles again. I saw them in person. They've gone 7-3 in their last several games. They look good on the field still. They're still playing very good baseball, and they're still second in the AL East, behind Tampa Bay by 5 games. But every other team in that division is behind by double-digit games or more.
That was the Orioles have this, like you just said, the second best record there. Going back, I don't see that the series loss to the Cubs was their first series loss in maybe 4 or 5, maybe more than that. The Orioles are still a hot team. Maybe the Cubs are just a little bit hotter right now.
Yeah, I think they caught the Cubs at the wrong time. Right, the Cubs
Yeah, absolutely.
won 9 out of 11. They're playing their best baseball of the year since the month of April. They're on a hot streak. The Orioles could have won the game on Saturday. They were out of it on Friday, and they came back and they won on Sunday. So they still had a productive weekend. They didn't get swept by the Cubs, even though they had the potential to. So them fighting back, that's why they are fourth for me. And then my fifth team is the same team as last week, the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Right, and the Arizona, I had the same thing. Baltimore 4, Arizona 5, and Arizona could have been this fourth team had they not dropped 3 out of 4 to Philly.
Yeah.
All they had to do was win that series, and I think then they're in front of Baltimore here.
And they won the opener in that game last week against Philly, and then lost 3 in a row to end the series. So, and that was a big come from behind win on Monday. So I thought that was going to spring them through that series, but and really, there's no place to go, right? With Tampa, Atlanta, Texas all in front of them. The only place that they could go was the fourth, and Baltimore had a better record over the last 10 days, so that's why I kept Arizona in fifth. I've got a new team in sixth, though. My team, the Miami Marlins, jumping up to sixth.
There it is.
Yeah, they are now sixth, and that is why I am repping their shirt today.
He was until he got a little nipply.
There we go.
His nip
You can
started
only see
showing
that
through
on
that
YouTube.
Miami shirt there.
Yeah, it's Miami. So this is a Jose Fernandez jersey. So R.I.P. Jose. But the Miami Marlins, still a little scary peripheral-wise. But, hey, they are one of the better teams in the NL. And in the NL East, they are just behind the Braves. So
What I wish they would not do, and I understand you do it with young arms. The guy's only 20 years old, but they're talking about shutting Yuri Perez down already by sending him down to the minor leagues. The guy pitched great baseball once again tonight. He pitched against a great Toronto Blue Jays team, 6 innings, 3 hits, 9 Ks, no walks. This kid at 20 years old knows what he's doing, and they're talking about sending him down to control his innings. If you want to win baseball, let him pitch.
yeah, but if you send him down now and you're able to space it out.
You're not going to make the playoffs. You're not going
Well,
to make the playoffs.
If you do make the playoffs, you're not going to have him, though. Because
Remember
he's on an
in
innings limit.
2012 when the Nationals shut down Steven Strasburg for the playoffs?
Yeah, well,
And
that's
look at the
why
guy now. Look at the guy now. Did
Well,
that
and-
really help him?
Right, but
But
I
go
mean,
ahead.
I'm just saying, who knows if you're even going to have him in the playoffs? If you're setting a strict limit on his innings, wouldn't you rather limit it in the middle of the year and then potentially have him for the playoffs?
So teams should start doing the Roger Clemens, and instead of delaying these guys, or instead of limiting these guys mid-season when wins kind of matter a little bit more, when you know what you're going at, don't start them. Don't start them till May or June, like Roger Clemens did his final year or two. Didn't come back until June.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I got off into a tangent there because it's upsetting me because Yuri Perez is a fantasy team. He's
No, it's
been
on your
fantastic.
See, that's the issue. If it wasn't on your fantasy team, there would be no explanation or anything. Who just wasted 3 minutes of our viewers and listeners' times because of your damn fantasy team, Michael?
The guy in seven starts has a 1.8 ERA, 4 wins, 36 strikeouts, and 35 innings. Anyways, Brandon.
So who's your sixth
power
team?
rankings. My sixth team is the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim.
Okay, why are they ahead of the Marlins then?
So they have not lost a series since they played the Cubs and went 0-3 against them.
No, the Cubs went 0-3 against them. The Angels swept the Cubs.
The Angels swept the Cubs. I have that reversed then. So they haven't lost a series in 1, 2, 3, 4 series. If the Diamondbacks would have done better against Philadelphia. Again, Philadelphia is the team that's making the difference here. As we talked about early in the podcast, they are hot. And the Diamondbacks went 1-3. Oh, we're talking about Miami, not Arizona.
Yeah, we're talking about Miami, not Arizona. And I'm asking you why Los Angeles is ahead of the Marlins.
You can see my bourbon glass is empty.
Marlins are 8-2 in their last 10. The Anaheim Angels are 7-3.
I have the Angels ahead.
Is it because they beat the Texas Rangers?
Yes, because they went and took a series against. They didn't split it. They went 3-1 against a hot Texas Ranger, a good Texas Ranger team. That's
One of the
exactly
best
what it
teams in the
was.
league. I don't have any issues with that. The Marlins are a team where I was trying to mention it a little bit ago, but their run differential is still minus 13, and they are in second.
I think that was it too. I think I look at the record and then I look at the run differential, and then what they've been doing lately as well. That's a lot. That's part of the three things I look at there.
So the Marlins are 42-32.
But the Marlins are right there for me as my next team.
Yeah, your seventh team. But the Marlins are 42-32, but by Pythagorean theorem record expectations, they should be 35-39. So shows you how lucky they've been in one-run games, and their offense has not been great at all. They only have 4 more runs than the Washington Nationals, and they have the second least amount of runs scored in all of the NL, tied with the Pirates at 300, who just got shut out again tonight. My seventh team is the Angels. Again, they're jumping up 4. They were 11 for me last week, so they are jumping into my top 10 for the second time this year. They were there at 9 back in May 24th and May 31st. So they're back in the top 10. They're in 7th for me, and that's the same reason they're in 6th for you. They beat Texas, and they've been playing great baseball and Ohtani.
Right, absolutely. Who do you have 8th, Brandon?
I have the Boston Red Sox jumping up 4 spots. They swept the Yankees in New York this weekend.
New York.
And they swept them in a doubleheader. They're 7-3 in their last 10 games. They're still scoring a ton of runs, 7th most runs in baseball. They're in that division. Ironically, they're in dead last in that division, but they're still, I think, one of the better teams. I think they're better right now than the Yankees, and I think they're better right now than the Blue Jays. So that's why they're 8th on my top 10.
Right. I have Boston coming in at 10th.
Okay.
They did take out of 6 games from the Yankees. They took 5 of them away from, and that matters.
Yep.
When you're playing a divisional opponent like that,
especially with the lack of divisional games that we have this year, right? The more you win against your division, the better off you're going to be.
We can see in that AL East, it matters. I mean,
oh yeah,
each team is pretty about a game. You know, the last 3 teams there are about a game spread.
And as we talk right now, not to get off on a tangent, but Boston's beating the Minnesota Twins 10-0 right now. So they're pouring it on in Minnesota.
Yeah, Boston's offense has always been good. James Paxton has come back with a vengeance and is looking like a mainstay for them. But they lost. A reason I have them 10th is they did have a series loss against Colorado. And my 8th team, who had a jump of 8 spots into the top 10. 8 spots. And, Brandon, they're not even my biggest jump. But this is the San Francisco Giants jumping into the top 10 out of nowhere.
Yeah.
They swept the Cardinals, they swept LA, and they've won the first game against the Padres. They're playing great baseball, and they're second in the NL West right now.
Did they win last night against the Padres?
They did. Yep.
Yes, they did.
Yeah. Whoa.
It's a 3-run walk-off home run by
yes.
Yastrzemski. I have them in my top 10 as well for the first time this year. They jumped up 5 for me. I had them ranked 15th last week. They are 10th for me, jumping into the top 10. They're plus 51 run differential. I didn't realize how strong their offensive numbers had been this year. And
that's a five spot jump for you.
5-spot jump. They swept the Dodgers, as you mentioned, but they're even kind of getting unlucky right now. If you looked at the expected win-loss from the Pythagorean record, the Giants have the best record in that division because right now their expected record is 41-31. The Diamondbacks is 40-33, and the Dodgers is 40-32. So they've kind of been unlucky according to statistics here. They are 20-15 versus teams above 500. That's very solid. That's the best record in that division regarding teams above 500. They are pretty good on the road. The Diamondbacks are the best team on the road, 21-11, and they're looking like they're going to wrap up their 22nd win versus the Brewers tonight. But the Giants, they jump up to 10 for me.
That's 5 spots for you, Giants, but that's not your biggest jump. That's not even your biggest jump. Who's your biggest jump here in your 9th spot?
I'm going with the Cincinnati Reds, up 10 spots from 19th last week. I believe in this team. We gave it out. Remember last week on the podcast I said, put money on the Reds to win the division. I think the number was at plus 1,000 at that point, and they were the worst odds in the division. They're down to plus 440 on FanDuel, which is still the third best in the division, but that is a very big change. That's why I talk about value. Think about in the last week, you just theoretically lost $560 on a $100 bet because of the difference in value.
They went from the 19th power ranked team to the 9th
in my ranking.
That's crazy. That just shows the Reds are red hot. And 2,
10 in a row with tonight's win.
The teams that were in that 5 to 10 range have played terrible baseball.
Oh boy! So there's runners on first and second, top of the 9th, and 2 outs in the top of the 9th. The Rockies are down by 2. So the go-ahead run is on or at the plate for the Rockies right now. So we're going to have to keep a close eye on this game. But the Reds, yes, jumped to 9th in my standings. Are they in your top 10?
Yeah, I have the Reds jumping 10 spots as well. They are my 10th team.
Okay.
Yes. Put them as low as 20.
Yeah.
And if we look even further back, I had the Reds, and I think we both had them at one point. And I had them in week 2. You had them in week 3 of our power rankings. That's not week 2 and week 3 of the season. But dating back to May 10th, you had them as the 27th ranked team.
Yep. They've
and
played
now
good
look
baseball.
at them in the top 10.
Even if you go back to May 24th.
Freaking baseball, baby.
May 24th, I had them in 27th as well. So they've played very good baseball. Their rookies are playing great. I mean, ever since they called up Ellie, they've been, I think, if they win tonight,
and even Ellie hasn't played well. Ellie hasn't even played well.
Right.
He had the great first 2-3 games, and since then he's hit the ball on the ground about every at bat. But that just shows you how crowded that Reds team is, and they haven't even called CES up yet.
Yeah, Christian Encarnacion Strand. I thought that was going to be last night, but Joey Votto came up last night. So I was kind of right. They brought up a player that was pivotal to their lineup, just not the player I thought it was going to be.
So you have to look and tell us when Strand's going to be coming up according to like promotional schedule.
It might be this weekend. They play the Braves here in town this weekend. Saturday.
But that's enough of a crowd. That's enough of a crowd of a top team to come in.
I'll have to go and circle something on the calendar. I don't want to waste any more time for our listeners. But, yeah, so Cincinnati jumps up to 9th, 9-1 in their last 10. It could be 10 in a row with tonight here in the top of the 9th. But the one thing that's funny and kind of crazy is in that division, which is a very tight division, the Cubs just jumped to 3rd in that division with the win of the Pirates. But the Cubs are the only team in that division with a positive run differential. Every other team is 18 or worse. The Cardinals actually have the second best run differential at minus 13.
They still suck.
The Cubs have the best expected win record in that division. Not obviously you are what your record says, but the Cubs should be 38-34 according to their expected win total. Every other team in that division should be below 500 according to that statistic. But the Reds are real, and the hype is real. So,
and they have more to come.
This is just
beginning for them.
They've got another pitcher in the minors. They're one thing I think they're going to be looking for at the deadline is starting pitching, but we'll touch on more on that as we get closer to the deadline and closer through the month of July. But that's our top 10. I'll list them again. For me, I go Tampa, Atlanta, Texas, Baltimore, Arizona, Miami, L.A., Boston, Cincinnati, and San Francisco. Michael.
Yeah, I'm pretty close. I think we had the exact same top 10. We don't have any teams different, but just different order. I've got Tampa Bay, Texas, Atlanta, Baltimore, Arizona, Angels of Los Angeles of Anaheim, Miami, San Francisco, and rounding it out, Cincinnati and Boston.
Awesome. Well, some fun, and there's a lot of parity in that top 10, right? Like, who would have thought at the beginning of the year that we'd be talking about Texas, Baltimore, Arizona, Miami, the Angels, Cincinnati, and San Francisco all being some of the top 10 teams in Major League Baseball.
No Dodgers, no Yankees,
no Cardinals.
That's great. No Houston,
no Mariners.
Houston wasn't in there.
No Houston. Yeah, I had Houston to jump just not to waste too much more time, but I had Houston and the Yankees both drop out of my top 10, down 6 positions. Toronto down 6 positions. Pittsburgh down 7. So while the NL took over the past week, the AL really faltered. And just missing out on my top 10 for those Phillies fans pissed off, you're at 11 right now in my power rankings at 11th place with a minus 13 run differential. So
you said the Phillies?
Yeah, and they just lost tonight.
Yep,
so
11 for me as well.
So we're in pretty good lockstep, and we don't look at these either. Like, I make mine, and then you make yours, and we put them together as we get closer to the show. But I love doing this. I love doing this with you, dude. This is fun. I can talk for hours. Cheers. With your empty Cubs glass.
Thanks to Jean-Claude. I got a little spitful in there. This is Jean-Claude right here.
Jean-Claude Barreau.
So yeah, this has been episode 30 of Barrels and Barrels of a Bourbon and Baseball podcast, where we bring you high proof and high heat, baby. Ain't that right, Brandon?
High proof and high heat, where our proof is high, but the heat we talk baseball is even higher. Again, you can find us on YouTube at Barrels and Barrels Pod, also on Instagram at Barrels and Barrels Pod, and Facebook at Barrels and Barrels Pod. I did want to give a shout out. We had a new follower on Facebook who reached out to us, and I told him I was going to shout him out here in the episode, so hopefully he is still listening. But Doug C. reached out to us on Facebook saying that he's a huge Scotch and bourbon guy, and he's a lifelong Cubs fan. He just found us via Spotify. So big shout out to Doug. Thanks for listening. Hope you are enjoying this. Love the comment. Love the support. And speaking of support, if you could just rate us and review us on Spotify, that would be fantastic. And that's a call to anybody listening still about an hour and a half into this episode. We are on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon, as well as Google and iHeartRadio podcasts. Please give us a rating and a review. Let us know what you think. If you've had Blue Note Las Notas, let us know what you think of that. If you agree with our thoughts. Scale? Yeah, what's it on your scale for our scale? What do you think of it? Reach out to us on Twitter at Barrels and Barrels. And if you want to email us for maybe some hats like Michael's wearing, t-shirts, or some stickers, you can reach out to us, barrelsandbarrels@gmail.com. And there may be something special coming out here in the next couple of weeks and months that may be in a bottle from Barrels and Barrels. And that's all I can say.
Let's go, baby. Let's go.
But if you're interested in that, reach out to us, barrelsandbarrels@gmail.com. And that's a little nugget for those of you who are still listening this far into the podcast. Micah Burns, where can we find you on Instagram?
Instagram, I'm at BNB_Burns. I did find out my Twitter. I've been bouncing around with it was BNB_Burns or BNB Burns. There's actually Burns BNB, no underscore.
It's the hardest piece of crap to find you on Twitter because I type it out and it's always the reverse when I try to tag you on something. So
it was taken. It was taken.
It's
It was
okay.
taken.
It's okay, Mr. Burns. You can find my handle
Good.
at whiskey_weather. That is where you can find me on Instagram, on Twitter. I am WXSpinner89. Thank you for listening to episode 30 of Barrels and Barrels of Bourbon and Baseball podcast, the Tim Raines episode. Again, please leave us a rating and a review. Whatever you think about our podcast, we'd love to hear it. We're open to all kinds of criticism, so reach out to us there. Again, episode 30, Barrels and Barrels of Bourbon and Baseball podcast, high proof, high heat. Mikey Burns, what you got for me?
Let's go.